Hi, my name is Sachi. I just made this bubble skirt for my daughter and came up with a recipe that is super easy to understand and to make for a beginner in all sizes. So I just want to share it with you. All pattern pieces are simple rectangles and all the raw edges are enclosed, so you don't need a serger or a zigzag stitch, only a straight stitch. To make this skirt, I recommend lightweight cotton or linen fabric. You can use cotton poplin, gingham, seersucker, shirting fabric, anything with crisp texture for a good volume. I used a total of 43 inches of thrifted cotton seersucker fabric, which was 44-inch wide. So if you buy 1.5 yard of any fabric, that should be enough to make this skirt with a little bit of wiggle room for length options. But please check with your final measurements of your pattern pieces. In the next section, I'll explain how you can adjust the volume and the length easily. But if you want to jump right into making the skirt, you can skip ahead using the chapters. And please remember that the final dimensions of all the rectangles include seam allowance of 1/2 inch. This is the half scale mock-ups I made. On this side, the bottom piece is twice as wide as the top piece here. So the length is doubled from the top piece so that it has more volume. On this side, I did 1.5 times longer than the top piece. It's pretty subtle, but you can see that this side has less volume and this side has more bubbly look to it. I really like the look of this side, so I'm gonna do the bottom piece that is twice as wide as the top piece. And the bottom of the bottom piece is gathered into the hem of the lining piece for the bubble hem effect. For the hip measurement, you need to measure around the widest part of your hip. Since you're making front and back panel pieces, you're gonna take that hip measurement divided by 2 and add 5 inches. This 5 inches include 4-inch wearing ease and 1-inch seam allowances. The hip measurement divided by 2 plus 5 inches is the star measurement here. And this star measurement is used for the waistband, width, and top panel pieces, also the lining pieces. And for the bottom panel pieces, we're going to double that star measurement. So the star measurement multiplied by 2 is going to be the width of the bottom panel pieces. This A measurement is the height of the waistband, and since the waistband is folded at the top, we're going to multiply that measurement by 2 and then add 1 inch for 1/2 inch seam allowances on the either end where the waistband attaches to the skirt and the lining. I want to make my waistband 1.5 inch, so 1.5 inch times 2 plus 1 inch. So this measurement for my case is going to be 4 inches. This measurement B is for the height of top panel. And the top panel is there for the design and also for the ease of construction because it's easier to gather the bottom panel into the top panel and then top panel into the waistband instead of gathering all this volume into the waistband. So you could eliminate this, or you can make it smaller or bigger, anything you like. In my case, I want to make this 4 inches. So 4 inches plus 1 inch for the seam allowances. This measurement is going to be 5 inches in my case. And the measurement C is the height of the bottom panel pieces. I want to make this 8 inches. And for the bottom panel pieces, you need to add 3 inches for the turn up, which is this part. So the bottom panel needs to come around and attach to the lining pieces a little bit higher than the actual hemline. So that's the amount I'm adding. So 8 inches plus 3 inches turn up and 1 inch seam allowances is 12 inches for my case. So the lining pieces start at the bottom of the waistband and come down to where they attach to the bottom of the bottom panel pieces. So we are going to add the measurement B and measurement C and subtract the 3-inch turn up of the bottom panel. In my case, it's going to be 4 plus 8 is 12 minus 3 and 9 and plus 1 inch seam allowances is going to be 10. So in my case, this measurement is going to be 10 inches. You need 2 pieces of waistbands, 2 pieces of top panels, 2 pieces of bottom panels, and 2 pieces of lining pieces. First, I'm going to do gathering stitches to the 2 long edges of the bottom panels. I'm going to use a wide stitch, about 4 millimeters. I'm going to stitch a little bit less than ½ inch from the edge so that the gathering stitch stays within the seam allowance. I did gathering stitches to all the long edges of the bottom panel pieces. You can see that I used the thread that is different color from the fabric. We're going to take these stitches out later, so it doesn't matter what color you use, but it makes it easier to take it out later if the color is different from the fabric. Now we are going to connect the short edges of front and the back panel. Also, I forgot to mention, but I started the gathering stitch 5/8 of an inch from the edges so that when I put short edges together, I can leave these gathering stitches out of the stitch. I'm going to sew these short edges with ½ inch seam allowance without going over the gathering stitches. And while I am at the sewing machine, I'm going to do the same thing to all the pieces. I'm going to sew all of the short edges together of front and back of the waistband and the top panel pieces and the lining. And don't forget to adjust the stitch length to the normal stitch length of 2.5 to 3 millimeters. Once you're done with one seam, you can immediately start with the next seam. This way you reduce the wasted thread. I completely forgot to do this, but on the waistband pieces, we need to leave an opening here in one of the corners. One of the 2 seams here. You need to sew from here to here a little bit past the halfway point and leave this open and then start from about 5/8 of an inch and sew here. So you need to sew here and skip and sew here. I'm just going to do back stitching here and undo the seams between the marks. And iron the seams open. It's a good idea to iron every time you sew a seam. It might feel tedious, but it makes a big difference in the end result. So here are top panel, bottom panel, and lining. I'm going to gather the bottom panel by pulling one of the threads from gathering stitch. Then attach one side to the top panel and one side to the lining. Before I start pulling this thread, I'm going to tie the ends of the thread on the right side. Right now, if I pull this thread from the other side is getting pulled too, and that's going to undo the stitches from the beginning of the stitch. I'm going to tie these ends on this side. Now I'm going to grab these threads and start pulling. Maybe I should do the one side at a time. We should do this carefully and slowly so that we don't break the thread. Gently moving together toward the center. Then rather than doing it from this side only, when I'm done halfway, I'm going to start from the other side too. But if you grab this thread, make sure to grab the same thread and not the other thread, because that's going to mess up the gathering. So I use the different colors for bobbin thread and upper thread so that I'm not confused with which thread to pull. because you don't want to pull on the bobbin thread from one side and upper thread from the other side. Make sure to pull the same thread. Now match the side seams and put the bottom panel to the top panel with the right sides together. And it's just my personal preference, but when it comes to a bubble skirt, I find that when the gathering is somewhat uneven and not perfect, it looks more casual and cute. So don't worry about making it too perfect, but try to make it somewhat evenly distributed. Now I pinned the bottom panel to the top panel all the way around with right sides together. Now I'm going to sew all the way around, 1/2 inch from the edges, right next to the gathering stitch, but not on the gathering stitch. I did the same thing to the bottom of the bottom panel and attached to the lining. Now I'm going to take out the gathering stitch. Then we want to iron the seam allowances, but just the seam allowances only. We don't want to iron this part because that's going to flatten the bubble. Now I'm going to fold the lining inside and bring the edge to the top of the top panel. And we want to make sure to align the side seams. This is basically the skirt part of the bubble skirt. The bubble part of the bottom skirt is nicely attached to the lining. All I need to do now is to attach the waistband. The side seams are attached already, so I'm going to fold it in half with the seam allowances inside. The side on which you made this opening is going to be the inside of the waistband, and the other side is the outside band. So take the outside band and fold about 1/2 inch to the inside and do this all the way around. Now fold this back up on the halfway crease and wrap this side over the folded edge and iron again. We're going to do this all the way around again. After it's cooled down, I'm going to take this out and put it like this. Now the folded edge of the inside band is longer than the folded edge of the outside band. This way, when you sew from the outside, you're always catching the inside band. I went ahead and sewed the top of the lining piece and the top panel together with just a straight stitch about 1/4 inch from the edges, so that it's easier to handle the whole piece as one. Now I have the lining piece on the outside, and we're going to take the ironed waistband, open this up again, and place the right side of the outer band to the right side of the top panel, like this. And I'm lining up the side seams. Be careful not to twist this. So this is the right side. Okay, this is the outer band and this is the inside band side. So I'm gonna put the outside band side to the top panel, the top of the top panel, lining up the side seams. I'm just going to pin in a couple places. So the waistband is pinned to the skirt. Now I'm going to sew right on the crease or just a smidge outside the crease, just about a needle width, to attach the waistband to the skirt. I just sewed here. Now I'm going to fold it according to all these creases I got from the ironwork. Now I'm going to stitch right on the edge. When you're sewing a lot of layers, try to pull in the back of the foot and in front of the foot. Keep the fabric in between taut, like this. You're not pulling it to the back or pulling it to the front. You're just keeping the fabric tight across and move it along the sewing. This way you can sew without the layers shifting. Now the waistband is attached to the skirt. You can use wide elastic like this. This is 1 1/4 inch wide elastic. Or I want to use this narrower elastic, so I'm going to sew in the middle of the waistband to make 2 channels for the elastic. I usually cut the elastic to the exact measurement of the waist and overlap 1 inch. Thank you so much for watching this video and for all of your kind comments. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please hit the like button before you go. It really means a lot to me. Super thanks are also available if you'd like to support my channel further, but that is really not necessary to enjoy all the free patterns on my channel, so please check out other videos for more. Happy sewing!